All right. Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. This is the annual seminar to both showcase briefly previous Breeden grants and then give some pointers to the next generation of Breeden applicants about the whole process. My name is Raj Chaudhary. I'm the Associate Director of the Biggio Center, and the name at the bottom that appears at the bottom of the Breeden grant applications. The work of the Breeden Awards is actually done by one of our Senate committees. And in just a second, I'm going to ask Don Mulvaney to come up and say a few words about that process. The Biggio Center does manage the program, and just the historical note is that Daniel F. Breeden was a faculty member here for many years. Did you know him, Don? No, okay, all right. So he left an endowment, and that endowment actually produces about $30,000 a year that we can give out in awards. The deadline this year is March 17th. As you know, because of snow days, we had to reschedule it for this workshop for today. And there is last year's, if you want to watch, those of you who are new applicants, if you want to watch the seminar, the equivalent of this seminar from last year, it's available online, and then we're going to actually have a recording of this seminar available as well, okay, as part of our archives. So if you have colleagues who couldn't make it here or hear from people, they can do it. Not only is the application form up here, but then the rubric is also online as well, at least a copy of the rubric that people use, and so you can check that out as well. So we try to be as transparent as possible in terms of the actual process of applying for the grants. So Breeden grants are about teaching enhancement, and there's two major categories of awards. One is a travel award, and one is sort of an instructional improvement award. Okay, and I think you'll hear today from people who got both categories of those awards. Okay, all right. Don, if you wouldn't mind just coming up and sharing a few words, I'm going to switch the mic over to you, and I will get out of the way.
All right. Can I just hold it?
You can just hold it. Yeah.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have 2 minutes to prepare, right? No, I won't take very much of your time, but I've chaired the Teaching Effectiveness Committee for 2 years, and it's a committee now comprised of about 18 people that represent a cross-section of our campus, multiple departments. And so when we talk about the Breeden grant, as an example, there's a diversity of reviewers as well as a diversity of proposals, and that offers some challenges. Just might comment, Raj has already mentioned some elements of and dimensions of the grant program, and they really manage the program, and we just come in and kind of do a little heavy lifting on the review process. We've tried to make that as transparent as we can, and there's always room for improvement, so if you have some suggestions, we welcome that. But one of the examples is the development of the review form that sort of objectifies some of the things that we look for and that can guide a proposal writing and so forth. So just a couple things along those lines. We'll get together after we do some review. We'll collect those. We'll get together as a committee and just basically like a review panel would be at any level of a federal agency, and we'll debrief, talk about some of the positives and some of the negatives when we can find them, right? They're hard, right? But and then we'll make some scoring evaluations and try to come up with the top proposals. Usually the quality extends way beyond what we have money to allocate, and so we make those kinds of decisions on the proposals that are going to best represent the mission and goals of the Breeden program. So that's kind of what we do. Are there any quick questions for me right now? That's the process. Raj, did you have anything else you wanted?
We can take questions at the end.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So we are now going to the real meat of the program. The meat of the program is actually to hear from previous awardees. And so, since Tony made a special request, we're going to start out, and then we can just kind of quickly go through. You have absolute maximum of 5 minutes, presenters. Okay, I'm very good with the hook when it comes to pulling people off. So I have no shame when it comes to that. Okay, all right, so we'll start out with Tony Moss.
I'll take that under advisement.
Yeah, you better.
You know how long-winded I am. All right, well,
Just clip that on.
is that good? Yeah. People hear me okay? Okay, well, thank you very much for coming. Last year, I was the lucky recipient of an award from the Breeden program to obtain a Makerbot, which is a three-dimensional printing unit. Now, I didn't realize at the time that I made the request that there was one over in IMG, but it's the older model. The one that I got was the updated version of that device, and it has proven to be very powerful right out of the box. It's very turnkey and quite easy to use. And so the three-dimensional printer is the device that you see here. To give you an idea of the relative size, it's a very typical Dell computer. It's an older one, actually. You probably know it well. Here's a keyboard, give you an idea how big this is. So it has a very workable footprint. More recently, Jack Feminello, my chair, allowed me to go ahead and get a three-dimensional digitizing platform device, which we are in the process of trying to figure out how to work it. And apparently, Makerbot has really upgraded their software, and we can't run it on the older computer anymore, unfortunately. Although the Makerbot itself is fine, but the digitizing unit is not able, for instance, to make a 3D replica of that polar bear that you see sitting on it. The Makerbot is capable of producing all kinds of structures, and I'm going to show you a grand example of the kinds of things that it can make. I'm able to take these items into the classroom. I did not actually make this one to bring into my classroom, but I made it for Dr. Wendy Hood, and she'll be using it the next time she teaches. This is elements of a hammerhead jaw. Unfortunately, the movie will not work. I wanted you to see that. It was about 40 seconds. But to give you an idea of what it does is it builds up structures by laying down plastic. And what you're seeing here is one of the models that I think that I brought over. Yes, it's the model that I have here, which is a model of a virus. And you can certainly pass it around. And this is one of the great powers of using a three-dimensional model system in a classroom. You can see so much better when you handle it and pass it to your neighbor. In the classroom, the way I see it, it has enormous value in teaching because of the fact that you can describe something until you're blue in the face, but when you hand around a model, the student knows what it is. And I think you'll understand as you receive this. I can give the students a dynamic model. For instance, I can show them that this is the jaw of that very model that you saw the pieces of a moment. It's actually quite sharp. So be careful of the teeth. It will eat you. Okay. I can show them how, for instance, actin polymerizes and how it falls apart. This is a dynamic model that falls apart, okay, and shows, if any of you know about the formation of protein polymers, I can demonstrate how the polymers work. I can get the individual structures down so that they're so small. This is an individual antibody module. I'll give you this so we can be a little more egalitarian. And this gets right down to the molecular structure of a protein. This is a transmembrane region of a transporter molecule. Those of you steeped in this area would know that these alpha helices represent a portion that goes across the plasma membrane. So I'll give that to you. And so there's lots of different things you can do with this kind of system. You can even make jewelry with it. Here's a bracelet. It's so valuable, I will not hand it around. And you can use it for all kinds of things. This particular model has a two-color mode, and so you can make cupcakes, and you can make busts of famous people. And so all of this is a lot of these things are already up on a working site that I've gone to called Thingiverse, and I pull down the three-dimensional file and print it out. But you can also make your own things, and that's why I got the three-dimensional digitizer. Okay? So that's about what I had to say. It has already proven itself useful, and I've barely even started to use it.
Yeah.
And just in terms of wrapping up, so the main thing that you asked from the grant was the funding for the instrument itself,
For
right?
the three-dimensional printer.
Three-dimensional printer, and then the labor costs and stuff were just in-kind support that you provided.
Yeah, I just provided that as part of my own time. But as we build up the use
And
of
you've been
it.
able to leverage that to get your department head to then buy you the digitizer.
Exactly.
Those kind of connections.
So it's been very valuable.
Okay. Got 40 seconds to spare.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah?
How much was the Makerbot roughly?
Okay, Makerbot has changed. There is, of course, yet now, it's a year later, a newer model. This one cost, I think it was $2,800.
Okay.
And then I had to buy support materials for it. The plastic wear. What you hold in your hand with the hammerheads there is about 1/2 of a spool, and the spools cost about $50. So where could you get a museum quality specimen that's very close to museum quality for $25? Models, you know, they're very expensive. This is particularly one that articulates. These were being sold by another three-dimensional sales company, 3D Molecular Designs. These were being sold when they were, the individual molecule was about this size, and they were being given to United States senators to impress on them the importance of immunological research, and each one of these units from 3D dimensional models company were over $125. So they would charge about $500 for this.
Thank you, Tony.
If you have questions, give me a call. I'm tony@auburn.edu.
There we go. And then let's get the. All right. We'll go. Yeah, let's stay with the life sciencey kind of theme, and go with Amber over here. She's got a lens, and then we'll go with
Thanks. Awesome. Good afternoon. I'm Amber Hutchison with the Harrison School of Pharmacy. I don't have anything as cool as a hammerhead skeleton, but hopefully I'll get you excited. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't thank my co-investigators. But at the Harrison School of Pharmacy, part of the curriculum is what's called an introductory pharmacy practice experience, and it's a required part of the pharmacy curricula. And the way that we do this is we have a pharmacy practice experience program where patients in the community actually volunteer to be a part of the program. And we found that 90% of our patients were over the age of 65. Some of the student pharmacists will visit these patients in their home and then provide services. Some of the services that they provide include things like medication box management. We'll do vital sign checks like blood pressure, blood glucose, and patient education on anything from inhalers to insulin. The way that this program is set up is that we have teams of students and mentors. There's about 18 students and 2 to 3 faculty mentors per team, and that team is charged with patient management. And the team is set up into subgroups where P3s mentor P2s, P2s mentor P1s, and that's just third-year students mentor second-year mentors the first year. And we come together weekly to talk about patients. We got this idea because I noticed talking with the students throughout each week, some of the things that they apparently had said to patients or the way that they were interacting with patients might not have been the most appropriate for some of our more elderly patients, like comments like, the patient gets really mad when she can't hear what we're saying, and it's like, well, that's kind of understandable. So one of the things, two of the faculty that were on this project, myself and Dr. Bullock, we attended the UAB Geriatric Education Center Faculty Scholars Program, and these kits called the Secure Kits were introduced at one of these FSP live sessions. So we put 2 and 2 together and thought maybe the Secure Kits can improve student empathy regarding aging. So the kits contain materials that synthesize common sensory changes experienced by the older adults. I just have one here for you to see. And when you pull it out, it has things like these gloves. I've got pictures so y'all can see the students interacting with them, and then the glasses. And the glasses simulate everything from age-related yellowing of the eye to glaucoma to macular degeneration. And it also has a little pill bottle. If you ever use these, ask people not to eat them because they are sugar pills and other people touch them. Our primary objective was to establish that the Secure Project Kits would improve student awareness of issues associated with the aging adult. So we used the kits in an hour-long presentation during the incoming P1 class orientation. Of course, our P1s are our first-year pharmacy students. Then we administered 3 surveys through Qualtrics. One of the kind of cool things was after we got the grant, there was actually a new study published in pharmacy literature that it was validated for measuring empathy in pharmacy students. And that's called the KCES, or the Kiersma-Chin Empathy Scale. So we completed the program in orientation. We noticed that when we were doing it, the students were taking out their phones and taking pictures of each other. So we created a hashtag on the fly called HSOP Secure. And the last survey was done in December, and there is data analysis that's ongoing. But we do have some preliminary data. 150 students took the workshop. 84% completed both the pre and the first post-workshop surveys. 40% of students reported having at least intermittent interaction with older adults. And we did have a significantly different empathy score, and then more students found it would be hard for older patients to self-manage medications. So here are some pictures, and then how it ties into the curriculum. I'll leave this up so y'all can see it, but how it ties into the curriculum, we use it for the P1s. We also have used it in a couple of our skills lab for third-year pharmacy students and for second-year pharmacy students when we're teaching how to administer insulin. So we've been able to use it across a couple of different courses in our curriculum. And what we were awarded the money for was to actually purchase the kits, and the kits are reusable, so we can use them every year for the P1 class, and hopefully continuously use them throughout the curriculum.
Right, thank you. 10 seconds to spare. All right. Any questions?
What do the gloves,
Yeah, go ahead.
what do the gloves simulate then?
The gloves simulate anything from age-related neuropathy to things like diabetic neuropathy, where patients actually will lose some feeling. It's usually in the feet, but some patients do experience it in the hands. So trying to manipulate like tiny things like pills. We found those to be really helpful when we were teaching insulin, because patients trying to manipulate an insulin pen with having decreased sensitivity in your fingertips is very difficult. It's difficult for some of our younger patients, so that was one of the reasons why we used it, or one of the classes where we used it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Jill, are you okay with a little bit, or do you have to get back to clinics?
I've got a little bit of time.
A little time. Okay. Just wanted to switch. Thank you. Switch gears. Let's hear from a slightly different side of the house. Robert, you want to come up? Okay. All right. And Miriam, I'll put you after Robert.
Okay.
Is that okay? All right. And then we'll.
Great.
Okay, this is my grant, title of my grant, Engaging History, Enhancing Craft, and Exploring Design Through Letterpress Data Machine. I'm the assistant professor of graphic design in the School of Industrial and Graphic Design. And similar to Don, my grant was something to acquire technology. but the technology I wanted to acquire was state-of-the-art in 1800s. So it's not quite as fresh as a Makerbot. I teach a letterpress course that we offer over in graphic design. If you're not familiar with letterpress printing, these are some of the highlights of it. It's printing with movable type, wood type, metal type, anything that has a relief to it where you can then make an impression on a piece of paper, run it through our presses like the one seen here. So the parts of this grant, the engaging history, I find letterpress is a chance for graphic design students to physically learn more about design history, particularly the development of printing, how to look at typography, letter forms in new ways, understanding it as a physical thing, not just a digital immaterial file that's on your computer, and learning more about kind of the mechanization of printing. Again, it's not just hit Command P and outshoot something in a laser printer. It's something that takes time. I think letterpress printing enhances craft for design students. They're able to get their hands dirty with ink, mix their own inks. Therefore, they're learning about how color theory works. Again, you're not just picking swatches on your computer. You're mixing these things together. Paper, how different papers react to different inks, how different papers react to different impressions. Hand skills, cutting and trimming books, their projects. And of course, all of this is also teaching them a lot of patience, because if you get the wrong ink on the press and you print it and it's not right, you have to clean that up. There's no Command Z in letterpress printing. And so part of this is also exploring design, really how to use different relief materials. We used wood type and metal type. We used hand-carved lino blocks. We used even a laser cutter in our school to carve out acrylic and wood. So different relief materials, various page formats, posters, books, note cards, postcards, things like that. And just the fundamentals of graphic design, formal attributes, color, shape, line, balance, symmetry, composition. So those are kind of the backgrounds of this grant. And what was requested specifically, we already have some of these letterpress materials, particularly the presses in our school, but we don't have all the things needed for a professional quality print shop. And so I wanted to kind of help flush that out a little bit more. So I was requesting a complete set of inks. I was requesting what's called furniture. It's a spacing material that you use to kind of help lock up your type in the bed of a press. And various other specialty tools. So our department had been kind of making their own little jigs and little templates to get by, but I thought it was time to really get the right equipment so students would know properly how to do letterpress printing. So some of the intended results of my grant, the goals were included. I found a nonprofit in Camden, Alabama called Black Belt Treasures that needed some graphic design work. So I wanted to collaborate with them and be able to create some design for them. I identified an exhibition of letterpress printed ephemera. And so all my students' projects were geared to get into that exhibition. And also wanted students to have more access to letterpress throughout the fall and the spring. This is something that's traditionally offered over the summer, but if we have proper tools, it can become a more efficient system of printing. Accomplishments so far, started making waves with Black Belt Treasures, creating a new identity for them. In the summer, we'll continue to work with them as I offer the class again. One of the students' projects from the letterpress course got into the 918 Letterpress Ephemera Show, and his work will be part of the permanent collection at Stanford University, so that was great. And more access during the fall and spring. Students have really taken to it. AIGA, the student group, has gone out of their way to make their own Christmas cards to help sell, letterpress printed Christmas cards to help sell to fund their chapter. Other faculty, myself included, have used it to create posters and other designs. So it's kind of getting a little bit more promotion. Future goals, collaborations with the poetry department here that I'm working on for the summer, directed studies with students, continuing to find this equipment. The grant, so far I've got about 85% of the equipment I wanted, but it is old stuff and it's hard to find. It's kind of like American Pickers. I'm rummaging through websites in people's barns sometimes. And then really lay the foundation for an analog design studio. That's it.
Great, thank you. One question for Robert while we set up for the next one.
Has there been a resurgence of interest in letterpress stuff? I know both of my kids are really
Absolutely.
interested in acquiring it. And
Absolutely. Just the kind of handcraft nature of it, a lot of people in it. It's a good cottage industry as well, so it's very popular now.
Are they still making the letterpress itself in new manufacture?
No. So a lot of the presses that we own are 40s, 50s.
I used to know people that had print shops that had all this.
It's different, yeah. Yeah, that's what I've been trying to track now. So I love those names. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be like the next evolution. We can carve them with a laser. And it hold them. They're pretty strong.
okay, it seems like a disadvantage to me to come after somebody in design, which. The money that I got was for travel to a conference in Boston, and I'm not going to show you slides of my trip or tell you about the Red Sox game, which the Breeden grant didn't pay for, but which I enjoyed. But I want to just say a few words about the project that the conference panel came out of, because that's related in an ongoing way to my own teaching and thinking, and I kind of skip quickly through these slides. This is just setting the context for it, and you all are probably familiar with the ePortfolio project. And the work that we did in this panel came out of some collaborative discussions about mentoring students who are working on ePortfolios, and about how, about the best kind of mentoring, particularly with respect to what the project calls professionalization, or what a more useful term to me, the sort of integrative aspects of the project, sending students out into the world with some kind of an integrated sense of their own experience. And our panel and the work that I've been doing from this involves an adaptation of the metaphor that's used in this actually quite interesting book called Far From the Tree, where he uses a model of vertical identity where children are, in most every meaningful respect, like their parents. Their experience will follow as their parents did, and he describes that here. He says, he talks about the identity that children inherit, but then he also introduces another concept of a horizontal identity, where a child will have something about him that is distinctively different, and the child's experience will be quite distinctively different from the parents. Well, that's a kind of interesting claim in its own right, but it seemed interesting to me to think about that in the context of teaching and mentoring students toward a professional life, because I teach in a program, the program of ours that is part of the ePortfolio cohort is our master's program in English, and that's a very broadly focused program, and students come out of it and go into all different kinds of jobs, and only a percentage of them go on to do doctoral work in English, which is fortunate since there aren't very many jobs. So, well, it's true. I have a slide about that in a minute. That's actually the slide of all of the people who come into the MA program, and then that's the job market there. So I think we need to back up for just a minute here. Well, let's see. I don't know. Left arrow? Oh, well, no. Okay, I'm not succeeding in backing up. Ugh. Okay, so let's see. I'm sorry. This is not good. Anyway, so I worked with, there we go. Current slide, okay. Sorry, there go my 5 minutes. I worked actually with Pamela Stamm in pharmacy and Francine Parker in nursing, both of whom are involved in curriculum that have a fairly strong vertical dimension. Nurses come out of the nursing program and they go into nursing, likewise pharmacists. But my own program is almost entirely horizontal, and then there's the picture, and we talked a little bit about that. And so then I talked about effective mentoring in English and what that would involve. And I'm actually quite interested in continuing with this project, partly because many of our students actually go into fields and do interesting, very meaningful work in careers that they don't even know a name for. And, you know, they don't know how to think and talk about careers that often involve very meaningful intellectual work, but aren't called law or medicine or business. And so I've got an ongoing project in helping students come to know about those fields and about what it means to be what I call a working intellectual. That is, I take what I've learned in my field to a wide variety of work. And I've learned a lot about this actually by having a lot of 20-year-olds come through my house in the last 5 or 6 years, all doing interesting things, very few of them with, that you can easily put a name on. And then I worked with Francine Parker and Pamela Stam, both of whom actually thought in interesting ways about this model in their own work. Because even within a field like nursing, there are students who will go off in a markedly different direction than those who teach them. So I guess that was my timer. Okay. Okay.
Questions for Miriam as we transition to the next? So yours was primarily a travel grant.
Mine was a travel
Travel
grant, yes, it
grant,
was. And the conference was very beneficial.
And we had lovely lunch up there, didn't we?
Yes, I did. The clam chowder, yes. Yeah, clam chowder.
I was there for a different conference, and it turned out it was co-located with the PE Portfolio Conference. Okay, let's switch back to the health sciences. We got a lot of health sciences people. Teresa was here very early. Teresa, Jill, and then we'll go back. Okay, we'll pick up again. Okay. I think if I get Tessie and Lyndon, then is that it? I'm not missing anybody, right?
Okay, my name is Teresa Gore. I'm an associate professor at the School of Nursing. I'm also the simulation learning coordinator. I'm the one that makes the mannequins come to life. I couldn't request my mannequins from the Breeden grant because they're $75,000 because they have pulses and they can talk and they look like they're breathing and I can have vital signs on them. But what we wanted to do was look at improving our teaching effectiveness on patient safety, and our focus is on hand hygiene. Amy Curtis was the co-investigator with me. Simulation is a pedagogy that we use, and is to promote, it's like passing around the hands-on. I can tell students all day long, you need to wash your hands. If you don't, you go in and you can take germs to that patient. They're saying that, 98,000 people die in the United States every year from medical errors. Not just hand hygiene, but from medical errors. And so one of the things is that we don't want to send students out who are practicing for the first time on real people. We'd like for them to be able to practice on a mannequin and see what the consequences of their actions are, because I have a Control-Alt-Delete and a pause and a reset button, and I don't have those on people. So this is one of the things that we looked at. We can teach it to anybody. We've taught Albie. Albie comes over and he's brushing the teeth and he's listening. And this one right here is one of our high fidelity mannequins that our students work with. We have a whole simulation lab and we have a control booth that's in there. And one of the things that we found is that we would teach students, you need to wash their hands. You've got to wash your hands. If not, that's the biggest thing that you've got to do. And they would go and they would get so interested in, I've got to go do this skill, or I have to do this certain thing, that they wouldn't do the little things. So we said, we've got to take that basic concept, that kind of vague concept, and we need to let them see it. Okay, so this one is where this wouldn't work. And so, hold on. Of course, you embed something and it doesn't work, so. Okay. And so this is one of our faculty members. Is there a volume so that we can adjust? Okay. So it's hard. This is a 9-year-old patient that we're simulating, and so I don't have a 9-year-old faculty member, so we have someone, and it's a little male patient. These students did agree to have this videoed, and it's trying. We're inside a control room, and so we can see out through these mirrors, but the students can't see us, so we can sit there. We have speakers, we have monitors, we have microphones, and one of the things that we requested through the Breeden grant, as this is taking its time loading, is that we requested the isolation material that we were using. We requested the glow germ that would simulate infection. And then we were able to get we're testing a program to see if students will do this in the hospital. So it has to be something that will kind of mask the face like they do on TV because you can't have patient confidentiality if they went in to look at the student performance. And then we were able to get iPad that were for mannequins that only cost $15,000. We can put their vital signs on an iPad and make it interactive. And this worked a minute ago if y'all heard it. Okay, well, the students go in and they start using, and they're not putting their gloves on and they're not tying their gowns. They reach up and touch their mask. They lean up against the bed. So after this is over with, since this one's not going to work for us, we'll just go back. Sorry, try to make it entertaining. One of the things that we did then was take in black light. So we bought the black light material, and we not only showed where the patient had been coughing and the pneumonia bacteria were around the mouth, it was also leaning up against the gown where they were leaning up against the bed, and then it's showing where they were touching their masks. So we did it with the doorknobs, and one of the students at the very end was sitting there going, I don't want to touch that doorknob anymore, because we were telling them the most infected place in the hospital. So they learned a lot from this, that it's not only what they do, it's someone else can come into the room and contaminate things. And so they've had to learn that you treat everything as contaminated, and being able to see it, it made it more real to them instead of it just being a vague concept. So we were able to get all of this, and we're getting, this is based data for us, or pilot data, for an intramural grant, then an AHRQ grant, and we've gotten publications and presentations. One of the GTAs that worked on this is actually presenting it in Orlando in June. That's it. It's just one of those things. Any questions? Contact me if you need mannequins or things to look like.
Scare your students about germs.
That's it. We have a whole little hospital set up over there.
Hope you guys are learning stuff, right? And there's all kinds of interesting things. Don't test it or not.
All right, my presentation is a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I did this because my whole grant was about digital imaging for my students. I'm an assistant professor at the College of Veterinary Medicine, and so my job teaching is with the fourth-year students as they're sort of learning to be doctors, and then I also do some didactic teaching in the earlier years as well. So my goals were to capture video and still images of my patients so that I can actually show my students what these patients look like, because I can talk to them all day about what we see in neurology, but if they can't see it, then they don't really understand it. And so I use this in my lecture, and then also to develop auto tutorials for the fourth-year students who aren't busy working with patients of their own. And so I basically just use this grant to buy a nice camera that can take really good images, still images and videos. Nothing too fancy, because I'm not a photographer, but something that I can use for my students. So the main didactic course that I teach in is called the nervous system, and it's team taught, and I bring the small animal clinical perspective for these students. And what we're doing is integrating all the stuff that they've learned from their first and second year, and they're taking this course in the third year right before they go up to be fourth year or senior students rotating through the clinics. And so it's just kind of getting them used to what they're going to see. And so I pulled just a few slides that I had written previously to kind of go through some of the stuff that we see on neurology, and then I'm going to show you some videos that explain that too. So I'll go through and explain to students what myopathic syndrome looks like. And so this is when a patient has a primary muscle disease. And these are all terms that they've heard before and have learned in their first few years. But then I can actually show them a patient who is afflicted with a primary muscle disease and has pretty bad generalized weakness and is hardly able to stand, gets tired out very quickly. And when I tell them that it looks like a patient is walking on eggshells, now they're actually seeing this little dog do that. Another thing that we see is Horner syndrome, and this is when the eye loses sympathetic innervation, and it can happen pretty much anywhere in the nervous system along that pathway. And the 4 cardinal signs that I want them to know are ptosis, meiosis, enophthalmos, and an elevated third eyelid. And so I can, again, preach that all day long, but then I can also show them a picture of a cat who had neck surgery, and the result was Horner syndrome. And so her third eyelid is elevated here. It's interrupting the eye here, and the fissure is smaller than normal, and you can't really see it, but the pupil is much smaller than the left side as well. So again, I can explain that to them, or I can just show them a photo that illustrates all of that. I can talk to them about localizing disease in the spinal cord and tell them that a lesion at the C6 to T2 spinal cord segments will cause a 2-engine type gait. And then I can also just show them a little patient who had a lesion at that part of his spinal cord. So he's walking with a very kind of short, choppy gait in the front legs and a very long, strided, loping gait in the back. So he's being driven by 2 different engines there. I can show them or talk to them about a dog who has a particular type of gait abnormality called vestibular ataxia, which pretty much just looks like a college student potentially on a Saturday night. So kind of a drunken sailor type approach. Or again, I can just show them a video of a dog who's off balance and has this type of ataxia. And then something that's very silly that never really occurred to me before is dogs and cats will get what we call catheter paralysis, which is just when they have an IV catheter in their leg, they don't want to use that leg anymore. And so it's hard to know if there's really a problem with that leg or are they just being stubborn. And it can really look like almost any abnormality. And then we had a little patient come in who her IV has been taken out, but she does have a little Band-Aid on her leg here, and she's doing this very ridiculous walk. And so a student might see that. They might see this in clinics and say, I have no idea what's wrong with this dog, when really she just has a Band-Aid on her leg. So that's what I use in my lectures. And then the way that I'm kind of bringing this into the clinics for the students is when they have downtime, I'm creating auto tutorials on Canvas. So basically just making a quiz that they can work through. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you. How'd you get your video to work? Thank you very much. All right. Let us move to the libraries, and we'll save chemistry for last. Everyone loves chemistry.
Hi, my name is Cassie Oliosis, and I'm the head of the Library of Architecture, Design, and Construction. And we serve the students and faculty in the college. And I'm here today to talk about the Breeden grant that I received, which was to fund the development of a materials lab, building sample materials lab at our library. This is just a shot of our space. We're located over in Dudley. And so the genesis of the idea for the materials lab came about a year ago. I kept having conversations with faculty about the importance of materials research that really spans all of the design and building disciplines that are in the college. And what had happened was, faculty would sort of collect, sort of samples that they got maybe at a conference or from vendors, and they'd be in an office or they'd be in a closet. Or at some point, I think there are even like mobile carts of materials sort of floating around Dudley and Wallace. Faculty approached me, though, about creating a central materials lab located in the library that would allow students to check out these materials, take them to studio, use them in critiques, use them for projects. This is just a couple shots of the materials that we have now. So the Breeden grant funded several things for this project. I was able to attend a materials research symposium at the Rhode Island School of Design. It was hosted by the Fleet Library. That was last June. It was a really fabulous experience. We got to hear from international designers. A lot of design firms have their own materials labs where designers go in and pull materials for inspiration or to look at composition, application, the different things that are going to really impact their design choices. So the symposium was very informative, and I was also able to meet and network with the other librarians who have developed materials labs at their institutions, in particular the lab at University of Texas at Austin and at RISD, and also at California Polytechnic. The grant also funded the purchase of a camera, Nikon, really nice Nikon camera, and also a pop-up photography studio. So something I'll show in just a minute is how we are documenting the collection so that there is an online component that is integrated and connected with the actual physical samples that we have in the library. Supplies, different supplies that we needed for the project, and then I've also had a part-time graduate student working on the project this spring. So we started off with a donation of 50 material samples. You can see here from Professor Sherry Schumacher in interior architecture. And we began sorting and organizing, processing and cataloging them. One of the things that I think is really important for students that they have to learn is how to use this organizational system for materials. It's something that they're actually going to be using in their design and building practice because they have to specify their material choices based upon CSI is an abbreviation for Construction Specifications Institute. It's just a classification system, and of course librarians, we love to classify things and organize them. This is just an example of how one of our materials looks now. We purchase tags. Up at the top you can probably see this is a Division 7 material. All of our materials are now barcoded so they circulate. Students can check them out for a week. And we've got 184 samples fully processed and cataloged up until today. I just wanted to highlight one integration of the materials class into materials lab into one class. This is Elements of Interior Architecture taught by Sherry Schumacher, who's standing at the front. So the students came to the library and we had a hands-on research session for them. I'm not teaching faculty, so I don't have any classes of my own, but I'm responsible for integrating textual and visual research instruction into all of the departments, the courses that I'm responsible for. So Sherry and I developed an assignment for the student. They selected 3 materials to research. So they were materials that we already had in our collection. And they selected 3 from various divisions of the CSI, so you can see the numbering system, organizational system there. They had to write a description. They had to do really thorough investigative research on the different materials, write up a description, and we required them to consult at least 2 authoritative sources. So they came back for a second hands-on research day in the library. And they gave presentations on their materials research, and they each created a board. You can see the young man holding one there. Sherry and I are mounting an exhibit of this work actually today. The final thing I wanted to mention as part of this project is we're creating an online complementary collection here. It's located in DSpace, which is hosted by the library. So this is an example just of how we've been documenting the collection, and time's up. So thank you so much.
Questions for Catheter? All right. All right, can we have one more formal presentation from our friends in chemistry? Then you're going to present? Okay. We will have some time for questions.
I'm Lynn Middletort. I'm a teaching postdoc in the chemistry department. We got some Breeden money this past year. We put it to use with undergraduates. We have what we call the Auburn Summer Undergraduate Research and Experiment Development. And we essentially wanted to do some course updates. So when I came into the department, I said, oh, I want to do all these new things with the course, just to rip it apart and try all these new things. So I sat and watched for a semester, and then we applied for Breeden money, and we brought students who had successfully completed the course. This is a general chemistry course, 2 semesters, first semester Gen Chem, second semester. It's an honors course. So we brought in 4 students who had successfully completed the course to essentially give us their perspective. We said, this is a direct perspective. Let's use the students who experienced the course to critique the course and make updates to it. Important detail, this is a laboratory course. So they're really in there mixing, stirring, having a hard time, struggling once in a while. So before they actually dove in, we gave them a little background on all these different methods that we have for teaching. Why is it important to teach chemistry through a laboratory course? What is it? What's the purpose? So we talked about that for a day or two. And they essentially worked with me to develop new experiments or to critique old ones. And we used the money not only to pay the students, because kids, they like a little extra cash, but also to purchase supplies, incorporating new technology into the lab. We have these pH probes that are run off of, get this, Palm Pilots. When's the last time you saw a Palm Pilot? And so this is a problem with technology in the general chemistry lab is over time they become obsolete. So we wanted to introduce some new things, and we gave the kids a lot of autonomy in their decisions. When I came to this seminar last year, I was wondering, what does your proposal look like? This is what our proposal looked like. We talked about the technology we want to implement, the new and the old. We had some flow charts about students being involved and STEM education, our objectives, just things like that, the budget and all that. So those of you that are applying, this is how ours looked. And the outline is pretty much what we wanted to do. We talked about the project, like I just did. And we focused on the instructional improvement aspect. We want to make the course a more demanding, challenging course that the kids engage with. So we talked about it from our perspective. What do we hope to get out of this? And it's really that direct interaction with the student perspective. Hey, Dr. M, I actually really hated this experiment. Let me tell you why. That kind of thing. The kids got a lot out of this, the 4 of them that we brought in. The department really liked the idea. We've been doing promotion, talking about what we're doing in the course and how to expand it to some of the other courses, which turns out to be really useful. We think that the program can be used in other disciplines as well, which is pretty important to us. And then the outline for all the logistical things. So these are some of the, we put our goals and hoped outcomes into 3 major categories. The students themselves, so giving them a personal investment in chemical education, trying to maintain their participation in chemistry. We had the design improvements to the course. So like I mentioned, the student perspective and us being aware of their problems. We noticed that often our opinion of an experiment was different than the student opinion. And finally, implementation technology things. So over the course of the summer, the kids developed new procedures, updates to old procedures, feedback. We made a poster presentation. I'm going to just run through. You can read these if you'd like.
They got a lot out of this. We ended up incorporating them into an outreach project with high school students. It was really effective. This comments on that a little bit. And we're actually writing up a manuscript to disseminate this information to the chemical community. Like I said, the structure is get the student perspective, bring in new technology, have them try it out and work out all the kinks before you expose it to your entire class of 300 students or whatever it may be. So trying it on a small scale and getting their feedback before you ever try to trip over it in your own class. And there's some pictures of them. I'll take questions. Maybe we have extra time.
Yes, we do. We actually have time. So let's thank Lynn, and then we'll take.
Oh, okay. Yeah, feel free to.
Keep it. Yeah, keep the. Any questions for Lynn, and then I'm going to hit the lights, and I'm actually going to do a little promo thing here.
And there's email just so you go forward a few and just you can find us.
Okay, and John Gordon's here as well. So Lynn as a postdoc couldn't apply directly for the money. So John Gordon, who is faculty member in the chemistry department, is the official person. He's the first show investigator. She did all the work.
She did all the work.
Okay. Just one thing I wanted to show on.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, let me go back. Okay, so you have their email addresses. The CCT. Conversations and Celebration of Teaching. A number of you here participated in that last year. This was a fabulous event that we had. It was on September 20th. I think the date's going to be September 19th this year. That's our Thursday Kansas State game. So that Friday afternoon's available. So we're going to try to, you have to work on football in the fall. You guys know that. This was a Friday afternoon poster session where we highlighted faculty contributions to teaching. So we tried to canvass all the Breeden winners. You guys had a poster. Miriam, did you have a poster? You had a poster. Teresa, did you have a poster?
Yeah,
at the CCT?
Amy Curtis did.
Yeah, you and Amy had a poster. So, so there's automatically a vehicle for presenting to your peers. So the whole idea behind the celebration of teaching was Auburn faculty talking to other Auburn faculty about innovative things that they're doing in the classroom. Right? You shouldn't have to go to a conference across the country and then find out what your colleagues are doing. That very often happens, right? So we wanted to really start local and have the local richness of educational innovation be visible, right? So making teaching visible is a big part of what the Biggio Center is about. So that's a those of you, if you apply this year and you get money, I'm going to come after you in the summer, or if you got money last year, I'm going to come after you and says, hey, do you have something to present, to showcase? Okay. All right. So that's all I have really in terms of the formal process. I guess the floor is open for any of our presenters if you have questions for any of the different types of projects that you heard about. I'm going to turn the lights on. Do we have any other members of our Teaching Effectiveness Committee here? Carla, are you on the committee? Yes, so Carla's on the committee. We have the Teaching Effectiveness Committee has representatives from all 13 schools and colleges, so there's a wide representation. It's a great committee to serve on, so if the opportunity comes up for you, you should volunteer to serve on the Teaching Effectiveness Committee. Do people volunteer, Don, or how did they?
There's on the Senate website, you can find it,
okay.
And you can volunteer.
Okay, because you can do exciting things like read these great grant proposals and award people money to do cool, innovative things, right? It's always good.
How many are going to submit proposals? Anybody? Couple?
Okay. New faculty have preference in terms of the awarding process. Okay, so if you're new faculty here, that's definitely something that is taken into account in the awarding process. Yes, question?
I had a question. Lynn?
Yes.
Yeah. When you were talking about the changing the classroom and changing the culture of the classroom, your students, I know that you said you used like 4 students that had been like chemistry before. Like after you implemented that, what about the students that you actually have that have now gone through what you've changed from those 4 students' perspective? How did they actually, did you poll those after that to see how they feel about it? And did this work for them, or was it something that would have just worked before?
Yes.
And short answer, yes. That's kind of, it's an ongoing process, right? Anytime you have a course redesign, we look at it iteratively. So the first semester, like I said, I kind of sat and watched. And then the second semester is the beginning, and then now a year later is where I started. We've been polling the students at the beginning and at the end of each semester. And so I asked them each semester things like, what's your favorite experiment? Which experiment do you think taught you the most? And also getting qualitative feedback from them as well. Like why, reflect on what this means to you, hard numbers as well as squishy information. So you're right, actually trying to quantify it is really important for finding out what works for them and taking into account their attitudes as well. And you have changing populations and all of that kind of stuff too. But we do try to get a baseline early on and then make the changes. So
you just send like a basic survey, or you just ask the question and they can just kind of poll them, and is there any kind of something that kind of goes along with that, or can we just legally ask the students?
So anytime that you're designing a survey, you want to try to use something that other people have used that's been vetted. So we're using something called the I forget the full name, but the acronym is CLASS. It's an attitude survey towards chemistry. And so it's a pretty heavy survey. It asks them about how they feel about all these different things, and we kind of tacked on our own questions at the end. So yeah, we can talk about that some more if you'd like.
And of course, if you want to publish any data or make public any of this data, then you have to go through an IRB process, institutional review board, right? So that any kind of student data, human subjects approval is an important part of that. But you can still do many of these kinds of projects without doing human subjects approval. It's just when you want to make it public and present, that's when you need the human subjects approval. Yes, I'll just go to a question. The green sheets are the evaluation sheets. Do we have a sign-in sheet, Iman? Okay, there is a sign-in sheet going around. So if you wouldn't mind, here it is. Okay, before you leave, just make sure you do signs. We just have a head count of who came. And then you had a question, David.
I did. There was a question for Lynn as well. I don't know if I heard you said how much funding you applied for.
I did not say that. It was close to, I think, $3,500. So we used that to purchase a small data acquisition device that works with LabVIEW. And a lot of our students are engineers, so we were thinking maybe we can make it into an engineering project as well. So they kind of fooled around with that a little bit, and we did a pH probe with it, and we were trying to establish whether or not that's something that we could actually scale up. So rather than using proprietary things like these vernier probes, I'm not sure, where you just keep feeding money into one company over and over again, really expensive stuff. Let's get a more generalized device, essentially a fancy multimeter, and have them play with that and work on programming in LabVIEW. So that's what I mean.
So the two categories of awards, the travel awards, I think are capped at 2,000 now. Is that correct, John? And then the instructional improvement awards, which was the kind that Lynn had, the kind that Teresa had, those go up to 4,000. So those are the two categories of awards. So, and sometimes if you get, so we've also done split. In your budget, suppose you're going on an expensive trip, there's a special training that you need to go to Spain, in Barcelona, so you can't get it anywhere else, right, for that specialized training. And we actually had a guy, Jay Mitchell, got into trouble with his wife because he went and had such a good time in Barcelona. Then he came and presented at the Breeden thing. So then if you can, the entire cost of the trip, of course, will not get covered by Breeden, but then in the budget you want to show that, hey, my department will give me $1,500 for the registration. I need the money to cover the plane fare and the lodging. And so the entire cost of the trip for my, personal educational improvement, so I can introduce this into the class that I'm teaching, might be 4,000. I'm getting this money from here, this money from here. So the committee wants to see that level, but understand that sometimes there's matching funds involved.
How many percentage of the proposal will be?
How many percentage? The percentage is usually pretty good. Of course, it all depends on how many proposals we receive, and that has been fluctuating over the years, but it's about a 50% plus rate. Okay. Over 50% of the proposals get funded any given year. Would that be done? Yeah.
Pretty close.
Yeah. My second year here, for some reason, we had 44 proposals, and we've never hit that number since. And usually every year it's usually in the 20s in terms of the submissions. Imad, you had last year's number?
Well, we had 26 applications.
26 last year, and
the year before 26.
Okay, so 20. We seem to have settled at 26 for right now. Okay, and we made 12 to 13 awards, something like that, depending on what people ask for. So clearly, you know, if everybody asks for $4,000, it's not going to work. But then if some people ask for a $750 camera, I heard somebody said $750, and then, you know, some other people have others. So it's the discretion of the awards committee.
How many page proposal? For example, $700 camera. How many pages you need to justify that?
Maximum is 5, including everything. So the committee doesn't want to read more than 5. So that's really, we want to keep their work to a minimum. So if you can do it in 3, I'm sure they would appreciate it. You know? So, absolutely right. They're your peers, so they don't want to read too much. They don't have to. So. And usually, so in terms of timeline, March 17th is the application deadline, and then depending on how quickly the reviews can get done, we try to get you information by mid-April, definitely by the end of the academic year in terms of awards, and the activities can start right away in May. Okay. It's usually done on a reimbursement basis, so that we'll just kind of reimburse your department for whatever costs you incur. It's not really to do it. But yeah, you can start. So you can propose something in March for a trip that's happening in May. That's perfectly fine. Okay. So it's a quick turnaround in terms of grants. I'd like to thank all of our presenters again. Really great lineup. I want to fill the air with discussions of whatnot. Sometimes we've gone into much more detail about the proposal process. Thanks, Lynn, for showing kind of what the actual proposal look like. I know we have a couple of grad students here. You can always partner with a PI. So if grad students you can be a co-PI on something. Just get somebody who's a mainline faculty member to put their name on it, and then you can work with them.
Have you ever had like a group of TAs that have taught this same lab, for example, for a few semesters and want to everybody get together and like revamp the lab? Is that something that's okay?
Just need somebody who's a tenure line faculty member on there, and yeah, I mean, we want to improve the educational experience of our students through this process.